exploring our creative selves. And would like to thank my co-hosts, Dr. Sushila Venkataraman and Mr. Kaushik Ganguly for joining us today. Just briefly about them, Dr. Sushila is Governing Council Member and Joint Secretary at IIT Alumni Center, Bengaluru, and she has a rich background in technology and development sector leadership, and deep expertise in innovation and strategy consulting and management in various sectors. And Mr. Kaushik Ganguly is a life come career coach with 3 decades of experience in corporate coaching, entrepreneurship. He's a finance professional and has worked with India's best corporate entities across ICI, Hindustan Unilever, Tata Group, and he currently works with students, business owners, professionals, as well as institutes and MSMEs. So very, very happy and excited to co-host this panel together, and also great opportunity for us to learn together with Mr. Anil Sachdev, who is the visionary founder of Soil School of Inspired Leadership and founder of Grow Talent Company, and with his distinguished leadership background in various senior roles across Tata Motors and Eicher Group, before launching his own consulting. We'd like to seek and learn on this subject and topic together. So with this, would like to request...
No, Testa, you have to do justice to yourself. Tell us about your background too.
Myself. Sure. So, I am a design professional. I've been in the space of product design, UX design, design research for the last 10, 12 years. And I studied from NID and later from California College of the Art. And I am adjunct faculty here in Soil School of Business Design, taking design thinking for the batches studying doing the PGDM course in SSOBD. So yeah, looking forward to the session here today. And so now I will segue to Sir. Request Anil Sir to please share the opening address.
I just want to say thank you to Dr. Pradeep Khandwala, who is my guru and mentor in the field of creativity, the topic we are discussing today. And before that, I want to honor my spiritual teacher, Swami Chinmayananda. Samasta jana kalyane niratam karunamayam namami chinmayam devam sadguru brahma vidvaram. Gurudev was easily, Swami Chinmayananda was easily one of the most innovative leaders of the 20th century. And just being in his presence and looking at the way his mind worked and connected the dots and finding new ways to spread happiness to millions of people, it required an extraordinarily visionary mind and an innovative mind to conceive the movement of Chinmaya Mission worldwide. When I was growing up, Mahatma Gandhi became a role model in 1969 when we celebrated his centenary celebrations. I was in the Kendriya Vidyalaya Central School in Dehu Road, and we participated in a quiz competition amongst the schools. So I captained my school team and we went to Lonavala, where at INS Shivaji Lonavala Central School, we had this whole quiz competition on the life of Gandhi. And as a young teenager, I told myself, what an extraordinary innovator. What an innovator Mahatma Gandhi was. What simple and powerful ideas he conceived of. So this was part of my growing up. Of course, we won the first prize in that competition. That gave us additional joy. But later on, when I met Pradeep Khandwala, and I attended a 10 days training program in Mahabaleshwar done by Dr. Khandwala, it completely opened my mind to what creativity was, and I understood how creative I was and how to build creativity in others. And since then, it has been a very important part of who I am. And I just want to express very deep gratitude to Dr. Pradeep Khandwala for perhaps the most original research on creativity that one has seen anywhere in the world. And Dr. Khandwala is really the source of all of that. So many of my ideas that I will be talking about today and my experience are inspired by Dr. Khandwala. And at the very opening, I just want to say that each one of us in this call today has got the potential of becoming the most creative person in the world. And that's just my opening, So let's explore that a little bit more. So Dr. Khandwala, the two great innovators, Swami Chinmayananda and Mahatma Gandhi, and then this thought that each one of us is capable of being the most creative in the world. So these are my opening comments, and now I turn to your questions because there is great power in your question rather than my answers.
Yes, sure. Thank you so much, sir, for wonderful opening address. Would like to invite Dr. Sushila to please start with the first question.
Thank you. Anil, thank you very much for this opportunity to be here. I'm very, very privileged to be part of this group of hosts, Kaushik and Tista. I'm just so impressed with everything that you've done and you've brought to the world. So let me just start by asking Anil, what are the reasons why we would foster creativity, both at an individual level and at an organizational level? Because at one, when we talk about it from the point of view of solving a problem in an organizational context, and we're really talking of a team, a group of people probably getting together. But at another level, we also have the personal that we bring to the organization. So what are the reasons why we would want to do it? And the follow-up to that would be, since you mentioned Dr. Pradeep Khandwala, the how-to of it. How do we create and foster creativity?
See, when we are all children, when we are young children, we have the curiosity. And, a child at the age of 3 and 4 asks maybe 1,000 questions a day. And, the most curious part of our life is when we are small children. And we have this natural gift of being very creative. But as we get older, for reasons we will discuss later, our creativity gets limited. But the most wonderful realization is that actually creativity is that intelligence that you can enhance at any stage in your life. Once you know what is blocking the creativity, what happened between 5 to 15 to you, and you understand the conditioning that was provided to you, which has blocked your creativity. The moment you realize that, you can become the new you, and you can become extraordinarily creative through many different methodologies. Organizations sometimes spend too much time on trying to get people to become better in analytics. But analytical ability, on the other hand, is very often determined by your genetic structure. If you look at different forms of intelligences, we have the creative intelligence, the analytical intelligence, the emotional intelligence, the design intelligence, the musical intelligence, the kinesthetic intelligence, and so on. But creative intelligence is the one which you can develop at any stage of your life. If you put too much emphasis on trying to improve somebody's analytical ability, the proportionate interest returns that you get is very limited. But if you focus on improving innovation and creativity, the returns are very high. So in a problem-solving context, which requires both analytical and creative intelligence and the holistic intelligence of combining both, we spend disproportionate time trying to make people on the left side of the brain and data and analytics and structure. And we almost have this faulty assumption that creative intelligence is inherited. You can't do much about it. And we don't do enough about that. So we actually put effort on improving the wrong things. And we don't put effort on freeing the mind and making people more creative as something, because we sometimes feel out of control. We believe that if we allow people to become much too creative, then perhaps somewhere there is a cost we are going to pay. Now, organizations that learn the wisdom of how to source the creative minds of people, then how to channel it, and then help them to execute those ideas through a discipline of execution, which is the power of making creativity manifest as innovation. When they build an ecosystem for innovation by tapping into the creative minds of people, the collective creative minds, those organizations enjoy a huge competitive advantage. Because, see, for example, if there are people with, let's say, what we, for want of any other word, because we use the word intelligence largely, IQ, and all our tests are towards analytical intelligence, test of English, cause and effect relationship, those kinds of things. Grasping complexity, those kinds of issues.
Yeah.
But we don't focus enough on the creative side. But if we were to just realize that the most complex problems cannot be over-analyzed by only looking at cause and effect, but when we have to find solutions, we have to think with a beginner's mind, with a fresh mind, with a creative mind. So if we were to put enough focus on developing this side of people, organizations can find out of ordinary people that they didn't even know were so creative or potentially so creative. If they were to put focus on that, they would unveil human potential of a kind they didn't even know it existed.
Right.
And then they would be able to get tremendous competitive advantage about getting from developing extraordinary performance from ordinary people by focusing on this language.
So can you give us a couple of examples, maybe just an example of where you've seen this happen and how it has worked?
See, let me refer to the Amul movement, the National Dairy Development Board and its relationship with Amul, the cooperative, 9.5 million farmers as members. You know, we worked extensively over a long period of time with Amul and with the cooperatives. We worked at the village level in Amul with developing 1,000 change agents at the village level. And those simple farmers and their wives who used to, for example, milk the cow. And one of the problems they were trying to solve was how to reduce the bacteria content in the milk. By attending this training on structured problem solving, improving creativity, understanding how to have a process which we teach as a part of total quality management. You know, these workers used to pay 30 years back 10 rupees a day to attend this training.
Wow.
And the way they use their creative minds in simple ideas, these women and people, they form these groups. They started coming out with ideas on how to solve the problem. And the amazing results they achieved, that they were able to bring down the bacteria content, they were able to solve many other problems that they took to TQM in such a powerful way that even 30 years later, all the dairies are still following that whole process of structured problem solving, enhancing the power of people to think, using Kaizen as a process. So, and in fact, they have published a book on how to apply this process themselves. So this is the most powerful story because it impacted millions of farmers.
Right.
But let me turn to many other organizations. In Eicher itself, we learned this whole process much before we adopted TQM and learned from the Japanese. When I joined Eicher in the first few years, I ran a series of creativity workshops and taught the technology to many of my colleagues. And many of them embraced this because Eicher had that beautiful culture of encouraging experimentation and the freedom and the empowerment. And I think that built a lot of capability in the minds of people of Eicher so that that special talent became even more special because they adopted new and experimental methods, because these, along with other methods, provided that. So these are two very near a role. But of course, there are any number of companies with whom we have worked where this process has done. And the more recently, of course, this has been channeled in the form of design thinking, which is a methodology of using creativity in a very beautiful way which embraces that, which is what Tista represents in this group. So let me just take a pause here. Yes.
May I ask a follow-up or next question on this?
Sure.
So, sir, you spoke about the fear of failure. You spoke about blockers, actually, of creativity in some sense, and how Aisha Group, in the last example that you just shared, allowed for the freedom of experimentation. And I feel like that sometimes we need a catalyst, or we need a certain like a role within an organization or in a team that allows for thinking, that allows for diversity which already exists to flow forth very well. So in your experience, if you could share opportunities or experiences where leaders have been able to overcome their, or teams have been able to overcome their fear of failure, or have been able to really go beyond, move past their hesitation of experimentation, and go really full throttle into the space of their imagination.
See, this movement which began with this earlier, there was a fascination with why Japanese had become so good at continuous improvement, and how the Japanese companies had overtaken the European and American companies, for example, in the auto industry. So what started in the 1990s as learning from the Japanese quality movement of the 1980s, that became subsequently a deeper movement into the broad category of business excellence. Groups like Tata's adopted Tata Business Excellence model, for example. Many other groups followed. And then in the last 15, 20 years, everybody then evolved that whole thinking about improvement and innovation into design thinking, and using design, the power of the whole mind, to make this happen. Let me tell you something very, very fundamental. It originates from the thinking of Dr. Deming, the greatest sort of, guru in quality management. Deming has these principles on quality improvement, and one of the principles is drive out fear. Because he said that if people are fearful, and he said, why do fears happen? He had two reasons for it. He said, get rid of the comparative merit rating system in your company that compares one human being with the other. Let there be no internal competition that I want to be ranked higher than you, because that is completely counterproductive. And the second, he said, get rid of this incentive system that focuses on results and does not put enough attention on the means and the process to achieve results. So he said, get rid of the conventional, the good old days, there used to be piece rate kind of in manufacturing incentive schemes. And in Japan, all the incentive schemes were eliminated. The last group that eliminated incentive scheme was the taxi union, the cabs who used to get incentive. So these two principles don't give a carrot and stick approach to sourcing creativity, and don't have fear, and don't create fear through your performance management system. Let your review process when leaders carry out not be in a review where you are putting fear into people not to talk about what happened, because the focus is on who is responsible. When the poor leadership asks the question who, when something goes wrong, the leader who's thinking with the whole mind, let's examine what happened. How did it happen? When did it happen? Where did it happen? So the whole beauty of asking the questions on focusing on what really happened rather than because Dr. Deming always inspired people to say the problem is never with people, it's always with the process. Suppose somebody was not trained properly and made a mistake, then the problem is not with that individual. It is because you did not do the right hiring, you did not do the right onboarding, you did not do the right training. And now you're holding that poor man whom you never selected properly. never onboarded properly, never hired properly, never trained properly. Now you're holding that person responsible. The problem was in your selection, onboarding, and training system. So the power of this, Dr. Deming, before he passed away, I heard this story that he came in a wheelchair to deliver his talk. And in one of the earlier episodes, we covered this. He replaced the word plan, do, check, and act, PDCA, with the term PDSA. Instead of check, study. Because the word check, especially in Western mind, became like you check means you hold people accountable. You check whether they are working properly or not. But he said we have to study and not check. He replaced the word that. I'll give you a specific example where experimentation has worked a lot. Of course, there are legendary companies like 3M, which have forums in which people are rewarded for sharing their goof-ups and failures. There are companies in which this is considered. Many of the Silicon Valley companies, which is the place for highest innovation in the world, they say failure is a badge of honor. So the entrepreneurs who have failed are considered more valuable by companies because that means they have learned a lot out of it. But in almost every organization where we have worked in this area of organizational transformation, we have invoked the spirit of learning together, creating that teams which work together, finding a way to improve the quality of effort we are putting in, and transforming the experience of our stakeholders. It's never in a sense which you try to narrow it down to individuals, never link it to their money and promotions and advancement and create fear. So when you replace all that, when leaders become lazy, they start holding people accountable. But when leaders are having abundance in their heart, they say, how do I get the best out of this person? Even though the person apparently in their perception has limited capability. So they design a system where they bring in, and such leaders also often are very secure. So they hire people better than themselves because they are never afraid that somebody will outshine them. And there are any number of examples of people who are very generous. I would take the name of Harsh Mariwala in Marico Industries. Harsh Mariwala had this fascination for learning about innovation from a young age. And he consciously inducted people who were better than himself. The quality of professionally hired. So in Marico, there was great experimentation. That was the first company in India which combined marketing and R&D because they wanted customer interface and product development to be combined together. So that's a very specific example. But let me take a pause because I'm sure there are follow-up questions from Kaushik.
Okay, good evening, everybody. And first of all, Mr. Sachdev, thank you very much for inviting me. And thank you also to my co-hosts, Ms. Sushila and Ms. Tista, for giving a very august presence. I would also like to thank the audience. Above all, Dakshita, who has coordinated so well between all of us. So my question is the following, that would you view creativity as a science or an art? I give the example of having grown up in the 60s, you would have heard a lot of Beatles music, a lot of Simon and Garfunkel music. Now here there are all these, people, John Lennon, Paul Simon, Paul McCartney. Were they born with a creative instinct to make great music? But was there also a science to making album after album of seamless quality? I'd love to hear your views, sir.
Wonderful question. See, research has shown that there are certain qualities you are born with. And research has shown that some part of your genes, they matter. Because what happens through practice, for example, my dear friend Aruna Narayan Kalle, my best friend, one of my best friends, Ashok Kalle's wife, she is the daughter of Pandit Ram Narayan, the great Sarangi player. Probably Pandit Ram Narayan was the finest Sarangi player in the world. And his daughter became the finest Sarangi player after Panditji. Now, clearly, amongst the house of musicians, among people like that, we can say that some research has shown that some part of these intelligences are transferred. And we also say, therefore, that some of your swabhav that you have, in the Indian philosophy, use the term swabhav, some of it you also bring from your past lives. So that's true. But you know, what you do with the gift that you have. That's why I love what Swami Chinmayananda used to say. He said, the gift you have is the Lord's gift to you. What you do with that gift is your gift to the Lord. Now, what did he mean by that? There are certain swabhav you are born in, certain gifts you are born in, and some amount, especially in art and music, you can say some of it comes with your past lives from the genealogy. On the other hand, it is absolutely well established that conscious practice, free of any blocks, and when you deeply love what you are doing, therefore, I want to talk about the importance of love. Love is the biggest force on planet Earth. What people will do for love, they will not do for any other form of recognition or money. So if you deeply love something deep in your heart and you dedicate that to something higher, then when you are performing even the music like that, you are the musician and the music has become one and the same. In one of our earlier episodes, we talked about MS Subbulakshmi and her rising to great heights, and I narrated that story. So I would say the love part, if at all you want to use that word, is the artist's view of the world. And the practice, getting feedback, improving what you do each time, learning about the effort you are making and how you can see the impact, study the cause, improve the practice. To that extent, you can call it the science of it. So I would say both are important. You can't say it's just an art and you can't say it's just a science. The science has more to do with practice. The art comes from this beauty of loving something and getting into the flow and overcoming the inhibitions that you have in your own mind. So that's what I like to say for the time being.
May I ask a question?
Yes, Sushila, please.
You said deep love for what you do, and I can't think of a more inspiring example than the Ellora Cave 16. When 5 generations of artisans have worked on something like that and created a masterpiece that stood through centuries, it could not have been anything but love and commitment. So that was a wonderful insight.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you mentioned the many intelligences that we are. And when we take ourselves into a situation, into a place, it is all of these that come together. It's not us analytical. It's not me creative, right? It's all of me that's going in. How can a person practice putting all of these together and growing every part of this? Because at the end of the day, to really bring creativity into a situation, it's all of these that have to work together. What is your opinion on that?
Yeah, I think there are some very nice methodologies on how you might do that. For example, there is a beautiful example of learning from analogies. And there is a tool called synectics. What does synectics say? Making the familiar strange and then learning from the strange and making it familiar. What does that mean? Imagine you are having a complex organizational problem. Now you're taking an analogy from the animal kingdom. You're saying, how would a group of elephants solve this problem? You change it to a completely strange, but you are examining some serious organizational problem, but you are now completely trying to change your thinking that if the same problem was to be handled by animals or insects or something like that, or from nature, then you begin to ideate ideas from that field. No matter how bizarre they seem, because they say how far they are removed from the subject. But when you have generated those ideas from the familiar, you have made it strange. After shortlisting all those ideas, then you say, now how can we apply it to the context that we were talking about? So making the strange familiar. And there's a whole methodology called synectics. You can read it about online. You know, synectics was used, for example, in the original design of the Concorde aircraft, because little children were involved in creativity workshops in which they gave the example of the grasshopper, which flies very fast. And you know, if you notice, the Concorde airplane looked like a grasshopper. The original idea came from little kids. So it's very interesting how airplane design was borrowed from insects. So this is one of the methodologies. Then there are some very beautiful methodologies. For example, we call something called forced matching. You take properties of one aspect and you combine that with the properties of other aspect. Then there are techniques which we call associational fluency. For example, you combine something that you associate in your mind. For example, every time I think of Sushila, and I'm not saying this is true, but every time I think of Sushila, I think of a musical instrument. I think of a veena, and then I think of rhythm, and I think of harmony. And in my mind, Sushila's character is to do with music. And when I think of my memories in my mind and I associate them in this way and I make these interesting connections, we call that the methodology, the associational fluency. So there are similarly in that typically creativity brainstorming method, which of course our friend Dr. S.K. Chakrabarti in IIM Calcutta in the Center for Values and Ethics, he would say, I don't like the word brainstorming, it should be brain stilling, because his view was that you should actually make your mind still. It's only then that all the fears will go and out of that new ideas will emerge. So in that, the whole idea being, don't evaluate your ideas at the time of producing those ideas, because we are our worst enemies. We keep thinking, is this good enough? Yeah. And when we hold that premature evaluation of our ideas behind, and we keep on generating new ideas, wonderful things happen. Then the power of diversity. In a team, when you design teams for innovation, you consciously have a microcosm in the team, a microcosm which cuts across different levels, cut across people's tenures in the company, cuts across functions, cut across location, and cuts across even attitudes. You have a healthy skeptic in the team, which out of fun, we call joker in the pack, somebody who has got nothing to do with that problem. But suddenly on a complex, technical problem, the young HR leader who has just passed out of the school is sitting there as a part of a complex engineering problem, because that person is not biased. So when you make diverse teams, you have women, you have men, you have people from different cultures, different parts of the world. But these teams have to be carefully designed, and you have to enable these teams to work well together. So when you are able to do that, then you can channel all this beautiful ideas about the power of diversity. And there are ways of how to have dialogue across differences in teams so that the creative potential is channeled. So there are any number of methodologies given on how to be more creative, and organizations don't necessarily spend enough time and effort to do that. And we as individuals, very often, here are examples of our conditioned behavior. We will go to our favorite restaurant by the same route that we take. We will go and sit down on the favorite table and chair that we always occupy. We will order our favorite meal. And that is repeated many times. Whereas a creative mind will say, okay, I'm so used to an Udupi or a Tamilian restaurant. I go and I find my favorite ghee dosa is my favorite. But here is something unique and different that I've never tried earlier, which is available on the menu. So that's an example of what we can do, little things we can do to experiment. Or, in my mind, I'm very rigid. I want to listen only to one kind of music. And here I'm becoming open to listening to different genres. Or here I'm very fond of meeting people and hanging around with people of this kind. And then how do I open my mind to welcome genuinely people who are not like me? So these are all conscious behaviors to free our mind of conditioning and getting it ready and fertile to source creativity within ourselves. So these are some of the additional points I thought I'll make at this stage.
Thank you, Anil.
Thank you. Please stop.
Yes, sir. I have. We have some more time.
Yes, sir.
So in this world where we are, like, on one extent, we are moving very fast in terms of technology advancement and whatnot getting developed. And like, as we know, as we feel like AI is becoming like another friend of ours who thinks just like us. However, there is this there's a lot of discussion. There's a climate of discussion which talks about how. Just a second, if I can request everyone who's not speaking to please be on mute.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
So in a scenario where like this technology is advancing so rapidly, and the role of creativity being also taken up by AI alongside us, a lot of creative work also happens through AI. How can we focus on improving the humane side of creativity as much as, of course, like, we want to deliver the best creative output? So how can we work together, in this?
Actually, Tista, you should be answering this question because this is your life. But because you have asked me, let me just respond to how Tista may respond to this question. And then you can build upon my answer. See, that real curiosity and interest in the stakeholder that you are doing this experiments for, creativity for, how do you feel for that stakeholder? So you first are aware of what's happening to that person's life, and then you are observing carefully what's going on. You are watching the person, you are listening to the person, observing the body language, looking into the eyes, looking at the environment, looking at the stakeholders, taking videos, taking pictures, and you are trying to understand the person. The whole science of ethnography that we use, the anthropology saying study people in their natural habitat. But when you have done all that, why are you doing all this? Because there is a feeling of empathy. In your heart, you are trying to improve the lives of others. Because you are aware, then you begin to care. And when you care deeply, as I talked about the concept of love earlier, when you care deeply that you want to make somebody's life better, only then the energy comes out of the creative mind takes over. Because you care, then you begin to come out with lots of new ideas. So empathy, and when empathy becomes compassion, then creativity follows. So empathy is such an important bridge between awareness and creative action. So if you look at the most beautiful part, on one hand there is awareness, on the other hand there is the creative action resulting in innovation, and the in-between space is the space of empathy, and then empathy moving you to do something about it, which is compassion. So if you ask me, there is one beautiful thing. That's why we say we want to improve user experience. But nobody teaches you how to really invoke that empathy in your heart. And how do you do that? But some designers use that through music, through verse, through opening their mind, looking at nature, playing with their pets. I mean, all kinds of things, because that is like preparing their mind for that exercise so that then the creativity is enabled. But sometimes, we are not getting those ideas. And that's because somewhere our attention has got diverted. Somewhere our caring and compassion has got diluted. And when that has happened, the creativity is not flowing. So it's not a switch that you can switch on and off. If you are not aware, if you are not paying attention, and if you are not loving the people for whom you are doing this, it's like, if you're an advertising company and you are creating a huge campaign, if you don't love the brand and people behind that brand, you will never do great work. But if you love that concept, the idea, and the people, great work will come through you. So that's what I wanted to say. The role of compassion and empathy is so important. But I'm sure the audience has many questions to ask. And I think Sanjeev Tripathi has already probably asked. Maybe there are others who are asking questions as well. So we can bring them we can give them we can pin those people and then enable them to also participate. Sanjeev Tripathi, you have a question?
Yes, thanks. I have a question, and can I ask?
Please go ahead.
Sure. So first of all, thank you so much for this wonderful platform, and we are being very beneficiary of that. My question is, see, from my understanding, creativity is the somehow result of mind, so creative mind. But how it is linked, how it can be made connected with Anubhuti and Chetana? So from mind to Anubhuti and Chetana, which is the overall core of the human. That's what while you were talking about some references that came in my. Is it possible? First question is it possible? If possible, how it can be done?
So Sanjeev, Anubhuti is that whole experience of being pure. That Anubhuti is just that awareness that I was talking about. And I think the beautiful word Anubhuti is so wonderful as a word, which is the whole experience of awareness. It's like when you have the Anubhuti, you all of a sudden, you wake up. Because out of that Anubhuti, that experience, it's like it's an awakening. The nearest English word of Anubhuti may be awakening. But then you use the word Chetna. What a beautiful word. Because it's like shining the light of consciousness. On that awareness, when you are shining the light of consciousness, then the creative juices begin to follow, because you are not thinking you are the limited mind with the fears and blocks, but you are going straight to the source of intuition and the creative power within you, because you have crossed the limitations of your mind, which is telling you how you are not a creative person or how you may or may not be successful. When you go past that, that is the Chetna, that you are not the limited mind and intellect, but there is something bigger than that, which is your power of intuition, the power of consciousness. When you tap into that pure learning experience of pure learning space. So that's why they say suddenly you realize there is a genie in me. So the genie in us becomes the genius. And what's the genie? That's the beautiful tapping into that pure consciousness, that I am not the limited mind, but which is preventing me, but I am much bigger than that. I am that pure. So that Chetana is that realization of the beautiful power that lies within you. So from Anubhuti to Chetana is from awareness to infinite potential via shining the light of consciousness. And therefore, even the thinkers like George Osborne, they write, they talk about the power of incubation of ideas. And they talk about the concept that George Osborne talks about is relaxed tension. On one hand, there is tension because it's a creative tension of wanting to do something more. Is the creative tension of doing something more. So on one hand, there is the creative tension of doing something more. And on the other hand, there is a complete relaxation because you are not the fears inside you. you have that beautiful infinite consciousness inside you, the life-giving force. And when you tap into that, then the creative juices begin to flow, because then it is effortless, then it is intuition, then the power of the flow takes over. So that's why it's so beautiful, that Anubhuti and Chetna. Thank you for giving these two powerful words.
Thank you, sir. Really powerful response. Thank you.
Thank you. Who wants to ask the next question?
I'd just like to ask a question, please, if it's okay.
Sure.
What are the follow-ups for creativity? We might have fleeting thoughts, as many as 60,000 thoughts in a day, out of which maybe 100 may be creative. What are the follow-ups required to ensure that the creative thoughts see an output? Thank you so much.
Kaushik, you are very right, that's why that there is a difference between creativity and innovation, and that's also the difference between a creative person and a mad person. You know, a creative and mad person both have divergent thinking, but a creative person is able to know when to invoke the madness of uninhibited thinking, but then when to converge. So divergent thinking is followed by convergence, because we all started with a particular reason why we were doing something. That reason, to remember that we were doing this to serve the well-being of this particular stakeholder in the context, brings us back to the power of getting the full potential of the creative idea and carrying it through to execution. You know, many years back, we were working with Madhubhai Parekh, the founder and chairman of Pidilite Industries. And I loved what he said to me, which I've never forgotten. He said, Anil, I don't want my leaders to start initiatives. I don't want them to come out just with creative ideas. I want leaders with finitiative. People who will finish and not just start. He said, many of the creative people, I said, I've met the best of talent, he told me. People are generating very powerful creative ideas, but I tell them, thank you very much. I like your ideas. Now, which one of these will you see through all the way through? How will you ensure that they are finished? And this term finishing ideas is about that you know that your creative ideas, you must, when you implement this, you must, first of all, while generating ideas, you must have other stakeholders to participate in the process, so they feel there is a sense of ownership. So you co-design a solution rather than just independently create a solution. Even if you have the best idea, if you get people together to participate with you, they will help you to embellish that idea with their own endeavor. They will begin to take ownership along with you. That involvement will build co-creation. And when implementation time comes, they will become your partners in implementation. It's what, for example, the Japanese learned. You know, why did the Japanese in the initial stages start taking only 2 years to design a new car and introduce in the market? And why were the Americans still taking 5 years? Because Japanese developed this what they call simultaneous engineering. That means even when the idea was on the design board, they started talking to their manufacturing people. How will the manufacturing people get aligned to that? They started talking to their vendors. How will their suppliers get aligned to that idea? They started talking to their distributors and dealers. And how will they expect, to support the new model that was going to come to this segment in the market? So by early involvement of their dealers, their vendors, the manufacturing and factory and logistics people, they had built simultaneously involvement, co-creation, and people had started planning ahead of time, that by the time the design comes to prototype, it comes to the market, they will already be ready. So that's how you build an ecosystem. And that's why, there is a beautiful saying always, if you want to impress people, want to do something like that, you can do it alone. And you can win something in the short term. But if you want to travel far and want to make a disproportionate impact on whatever you are working on, then you have to work together. So I think the innovation system requires extreme collaboration. And that's what we need to do to make this happen.
So Anil, this is Rajesh Daya.
Yes, Rajesh, wonderful. Let's put the spotlight on. Tillai, can you put the spotlight on the person asking the question, please? Yeah. Rajesh Daya, where do I see you here? Yeah.
No, it's okay. I think spotlight should be on you only.
No, there you are. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So my question is, it's personal, but I'm sure it applies to everyone here who's listening to you. At a young age, in mid-careers, we achieve successes with this whole, I call chaotic creativity on the go. And then some people simply relish in it. Solutions are just flowing the moment you see a problem, and then it becomes almost like a habit. But as you start maturing, and you started your session by talking about the age versus creativity, your creative thoughts are more prolonged, more thoughtful. There is a sense making before you jump to adopting something. So how do you choose which one is the right for what moment? How can you be, if I can take a metaphor, be Krishna-like, where your creativity and wisdom both put together, he was very creative in the field, is dharmic at the same time in the battlefield?
You know, there are certain aspects of creativity. First of all, since we began the conversation of age, I want to say that there is research done that at very young age, at age 5, all of us are very creative. But something happens to us as we get older and it keeps reducing. And after 15, it is reduced considerably. And by the way, between a 20-year-old and an 80 years old, there is no difference on creativity by age. Because all the blocks have already taken place by the time you are 20. And by 15, in fact, most fears have been created in your heart. This was global research. Now, as you get older and you realize you are nobody to impress, you're not trying to impress somebody. You're not looking for awards. You're not looking for any external form of recognition. And that for you, the work itself is a joy. And there is a sense that, you know, and that's why in our Indian culture, we talked about the 4 ashrams, from brahmacharya to grahastha to vanaprastha and to sannyas. Because as we go, in the first part of our life, we are learning. So first part is learn. Second part of our life, we are earning. Earn enough money, earn a reputation, build a brand, all that. Take care of our family, their needs. But the third part of the life, suddenly there is an awakening after people turn 50. There's sudden desire that, you know, I have got whatever I wanted. Now it's time for me to start giving back. And all of a sudden, there is this beautiful desire to return and not just earn. When that bhavana comes of serving others, when a leader is very conscious of deliberately coaching younger people to get to replace leaders like him and is not feeling insecure that if I develop my people who are better than me, then what will happen to me? Those kinds of fears are gone. Then at that stage, creativity becomes much easier because the limited fears of, you know, the security, for recognition, even for belongingness, those fears are over. And now one is in a better stage of life. So it becomes much better because the giving attitude helps the person to free up the mind and helps the person to become much more. Now, this need not be the case for everybody. There might be older people who are still earning for attention and still wanting to make money and still seeking pleasure. And there are people who are in the, you know, they are kind of their ashrams in their life are mixed up. But if you follow what is the right thing for different stages of life, then I think there's a very beautiful process. And of course, then it comes a stage of life which some of us are approaching, which is to say, it's not just return, it's now yearn.
Yeah.
Yearn, which means understanding what life itself is about and live in remembrance. where even death is a beautiful thought of remembrance, the remembrance of the Creator. And when that deep love comes, which we see in realized masters, therefore, they are so extraordinarily creative. Those realized masters, it is as if their vision comes alive. Their words become prophecy. Why? Because their intention is the purest. Because they are one in communion with the Creator. So it's almost, that is why as such of the realized masters, we begin to experience miracles in everyday life in their presence, because the power is so much of that pure intention, complete lack of fear, not wanting any sense of ego. And when the ego is gone, the fears are gone, and pure love of service remains, and you are one with the Creator. Then, of course, you are at the most creative self. Our Guruji, Swami Tejamanandaji, for a few years back, he went into Ekant. He went for 4 months. He did not meet any other human being. But when he came out, after those 4 months, the most divine poetry, the most divine literature and compositions came through him. And we looked like a miracle of what that 4 months of just being in communion with his Creator had produced out of him. And in a way, many of us need to go into our own retreat from time to time. Even though we may be very busy, if we can find time to go into our retreat, to our real home, and really engage with what we deeply love and what truly matters to us, and dedicate that to the service of the universe, I am sure we will be the most creative in that parts of our life. Is something, Rajesh, you consciously chose some time back to walk away from a corporate position, from a board level position. And even though I'm not fully up to date to what you do every day, but knowing you as a person, I think the whole part of you was to say, now, how can I improve the ecosystem? How can I give back? How can I serve? And I'm sure the most satisfying parts of your life may be emerging at this stage of your life, because you feel an inner sense of fulfillment. So that's how I link it to that.
Of course. Thank you.
So well said, Anil. That's brilliant.
Thank you. Which voice was that?
That was Gauri.
Hi, Gauri. Hi.
Absolutely resonating with the thought process I've had. But it's also still a struggle, Anil, even for the creative person, and even if the intention is pure, um, to really make reality happen, to really make that dream come down into uh, on the ground is a huge struggle, because you are actually battling so many other intentions which are different.
Yes, and that is the beautiful of the power of the same mind, which you can unfree to realize the magic in you, and then
Yes.
the same mind also then creates limitations, which does that. So that's why it's a process of evolution, and
Wow.
every day we say, and ultimately we have to surrender our struggle to the Creator, to say, my Bhagwan, my love, my Guru, I surrender all these limitations to you. And when I have done that, I have genuine faith that I will carry with the positive image of where I want to go, and all my limitations I offer to you. And with that deep love in my heart, I continue to source the energy and carry on, regardless of the obstacles I face.
Fantastic. It's beautifully put.
Thank you, Gauri. Thank you very much.
Anil, Mario has a question.
Yes.
Anil,
Okay, one final question, because only a minute left. Yeah, go ahead.
Anil, can I speak?
Sure.
Hi, Atul
Yes,
Bhattacharya.
Atul, very nice to see you. Thank you.
Yeah, I've been hearing this with a lot of interest, also because Satish Chakravarti also took our last course in Calcutta in 1989, and that's the only one I remember really. Everything else is forgotten from that MBA degree. And it was brain stilling, work enrichment, this is work enlargement, a number of other things. Now, what I did was just, got into my mind when you talked about Anubhuti and Chetna. It's like, we are all connected, let's say, through this mobile phone. There's a Wi-Fi and a 5G, etc. But then when you switch on the Bluetooth, that's when, directly you're connected to a particular entity. And I think that's where you're kind of drawing your creative energies from. The supreme consciousness, or whatever people might think of it. But that's where that Bluetooth, I'm just giving a technology example, it may not be the best one, but just to give you the feel that it becomes a one-to-one straight into you. You don't even realize look, something has entered you, and you put that into practice, and that becomes a creative output from there.
What a beautiful analogy. Yes. It provides the focus. The Bluetooth provides the focus to switch into the higher power. Thank you. So Teesta, you want to sum up because we are past the time?
Yes, thank you so much, everyone, for really joining in and sharing in your thoughts, also exchanging such wonderful words of your own creativity and beautiful enlightenment. Thank you so much for joining in, and we can close now.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anil.
Thank you.